So, listen, as far as I'm concerned, when you look at WrestleMania 41 or the potential WrestleMania 41 card on paper, it looks totally insane. And yet there is a contingent of people who don't think it looks very good. And that's totally fine, of course, that's just how the world goes round. But honestly, I actually made this video the Friday before the Elimination Chamber. I was going to put it up on the Monday after the Elimination Chamber. And then John Cena, he went and did the old heel-a-roo, and basically, that's where this all comes from, right? That's what really made me go, you know what, I'm pretty pumped about WrestleMania 41. Because even when it came out that it was going to be John Cena versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE title, and John going for his 17th World Championship, I think we were all like, that's a pretty good main event, especially if The Rock is not going to be involved. Now, as I said back then, if you could have somehow sorted out The Rock and Roman Reigns on night 1, and John Cena versus Cody Rhodes on night 2, or vice versa, whatever the flub you want to do, it's pretty much the ultimate WrestleMania, for many reasons that we'll go into if it ever does happen. But John Cena versus Cody Rhodes is a ridiculous match. As I always say, if we went back to 2016 and I had told you this was going to happen when John Cena was on top of the wrestling world and Cody went, haha, WWE, I'm leaving, you actually would have been mad at me. You would have insulted me if I had wrote that on Reddit Squared Circle or social media or TikTok, which probably didn't even exist back then. Everybody would have called me insane and I probably would have been lost my job and I probably would have been ostracized from the community. But here we are and we are getting it. And of course, the extra caveat is that John Cena is going to be the villain. I presume The Rock is going to be in his corner. There's so many different things that we can do with this. Like, everyone keeps talking about The Rock's fingers, which is a terrible thing to say. But if you are going to include an extra person, maybe that is going to be how John Cena wins his 17th championship. Let's just say, for lack of a better term, I don't think it would be this. You take someone like a Seth Rollins, and he is the guy that screws over Cody Rhodes, and that would be massive given what happened at WrestleMania 40, and then you do roll out onto Raw, and The Rock has this bizarre new faction. Now, that, to me, is going to be huge. It's going to be huge if John Cena is the world champion anyway, because not only will he break the record, but he'll break the record as a heel. Once again, nobody was predicting that when he came back to do his retirement tour. But there's also the caveat that Travis Scott does seem to be a part of this group. Now, obviously, that's caused quite some controversy, as it does sound like he smacked Cody for real, which is not good. But again, I'll let the people that know more about that discuss it. But then it comes out that Travis Scott is training with Booker T. So the only place that Travis Scott, I can imagine, is going to have a wrestling match is at WrestleMania. So who the hell is he going to fight? Now, maybe he is just training because he's going to be involved in the main event, right? We do know, look at the last couple of years, WWE likes doing crazy matches on the Sunday evening, and it's worked so far, so I totally get it. So if it is Booker T that is training Travis Scott, as the word said on the street, maybe that's why he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Cody has to get his revenge, and therefore he needs to train how to take a fall, whatever you want to call it. But when I sat down to try and work out who could face him, Jimmy Uso, maybe? And the only reason, because we are going to go through this card in just 1 second, is I couldn't find a place for Jimmy Uso. So I was like, well, I guess he could take on Travis Scott. But I suppose it works, because Travis Scott could beat Jimmy Uso. But usually you find somebody else to sort of fit into that role. But it's totally crazy. And again, it could just be the rumor mill running wild, and Travis Scott is just going to be here, there, and everywhere, as opposed from a consistent part of the group. But it's so nuts. And John Cena, in its own right, turning heel, is so never say never. And now we can never say never. That alone gets me pumped. But then on Raw, what happens? Essentially, we confirm that it is going to be CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. I mean, there was other murmurings. There's going to be a bunch of twists and turns. So maybe we are going to do something that surprises us. But those three guys, I just feel like have to do that match. What I mean by that is if you do Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, which would also totally work, or a CM Punk versus a Roman Reigns, where does the other guy fit? Because, of course, Cody has now been taken away. And I think the benefit from doing the triple threat is that then you can do the singles matches afterwards. Now, look, and there's pros and cons to both ways of this. But you have to do the final match, the final singles match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins at some point, right? Kicked off in 2014, 11 years in the making. Roman Reigns never probably beat Seth Rollins and vice versa. And you have to do the same thing with CM Punk. Like CM Punk and Seth Rollins feud, you can go back to that whenever you want. However, we have seen two massive matches with them. Whereas if something does happen with Paul Heyman at WrestleMania, which it could do, which adds to the insanity of this card, then that could be where we get to. Maybe it's a good guy Roman Reigns taking on a bad guy CM Punk. Now you'd be going, Simon, you can't say such things. But once again, I refer you to the start of this video. We just don't know anymore, and I think that's what makes WrestleMania 41 so exciting. I think that Triple H in charge and whoever else is help writing the shows, as long as it makes sense and it fits their stories and it's going to create momentum and it's going to create buzz, nothing is off the table. Jey Uso winning the Rumble, which in retrospect also makes John Cena's heel turn even more interesting, and then you have John Cena himself. So you have Gunther versus Jey Uso on this show as well. That's been confirmed for a while. Gunther could win. win. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but would I bet my life on it? No. Also, you shouldn't be betting your life on professional wrestling. It's just wrestling. It's not important. So straight away, those three matches I think have massive intrigue, as does Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky versus Bianca Belair, which we also started teasing on Monday night. And you know that has interest because people on the internet are like, that should be the main event of night one. And I'd totally be down for that as well. A championship is on the line. You saw how over Rhea Ripley was. Io Sky smacked them both in the face, and she still got cheered. Bianca Belair is Bianca Belair, one of the best baby faces in the entire company. And even if we didn't know some other matches, that there, which I would consider the top matches, we haven't even mentioned Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, but I suppose that does rub some people the wrong way, so I do get it. But that to me feels like a WrestleMania 41 card, and maybe it's because some people aren't into the build, but I always expected the main week to be this week, because you want to come outside of the Elimination Chamber. And after Monday, the Raw, we have Cody versus John Cena face-to-face, the first time under one roof. We're going to know a lot more about this. But listen, Charlotte versus Tiffany, I still expect to be really good, and I think ultimately the feud will go on for a while, and it'll help Tiffany be a super duper mega babyface by the end of it, which is the point of wrestling. And then you have grudge matches as well, right? And these are stories that have been there for a while, even if they are just starting to ramp up now. Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, and again, you have to assume that Sami Zayn will get involved in that, because I can't find a place for him on this card unless we do the Karrion Kross stuff. But that just feels like it's going to be a TV feud as opposed to a WrestleMania feud. But you also have Naomi versus Jade Cargill. Now, I'm excited to see Naomi as a heel because we've never really seen that before. This is a great opportunity for Jade Cargill to be the superhero, the superwoman. And I'm not going to talk about all the other controversy. That will play itself out in the background, I'm sure. But there is also the wonderful fantasy booking, mostly from me. But again, I'm kind of repeating myself. It ties into the craziness that wrestling is right now, specifically WWE. There is every chance that Naomi and Bianca Belair were so over the top on SmackDown because this is all a plan. This is all a ruse. They took Jade Cargill out together for reasons that WWE have to come up with. And basically, at WrestleMania 41, whichever day it may be, it will be Naomi that helps Bianca Belair win that championship. And maybe you can even do it in a way where that match happens on night one, and Naomi versus Jade Cargill happens on night two, and by that point, Bianca Belair is just a full-on bad guy, which I'm slightly in between with, because again, she's such a good guy, and then she helps Naomi, and we go on from there. I don't know, right? What I'm saying is, when you go through the card and the potential card, there are so many directions it could go in. And just to make doubly sure, before you do say it's time that's never going to happen, John Cena went heel. Also, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton could steal the show. Those two guys are goats. I do believe there's two other matches that I think we can all but say are confirmed, even though they're not. But Logan Paul versus AJ Styles would be very strange if it didn't appear based on what happened on Raw. And again, AJ Styles had an amazing match with Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. So don't you tell me he can't do it with Logan Paul. And if it's not Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre, I don't understand wrestling anymore. Now, you can make the argument I've never understood wrestling, which should be totally accurate and more power to you. But I don't think you do all that stuff at the Royal Rumble. I don't think you do all that stuff at the Elimination Chamber. And it does kind of tie into WrestleMania 40, which makes me think this has been the plan for a while. And any noise that did come out from the backstage area may have been a bunch of baloney, because it was Damian Priest that cashed in on Drew, and he kind of got his revenge, but not really. And there could be a stipulation to this. I just don't think we know the total angle here. And if they were going to do some kind of crazy match, it would stand out. And I really don't have a problem with it. And I hope that WWE actually gives them more time to establish this, because Drew McIntyre had a terrific 2024. But you know who else did too? Damian Priest. Now, very sadly, Damian Priest has entered that whole, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Because people are like, oh man, Damian Priest shouldn't be in this kind of position. You're mad, man. Go back when he watched that title, everything he was doing with the Judgment Day. You can say ever since he left the Judgment Day, he's still trying to find himself, but that's just the passage of wrestling. So if all of those are confirmed matches in inverted commas, I think we're already eating good, but then you can do this. Because Bayley versus Roxanne Perez is something I felt has been around for ages, just because WWE keeps having them smash heads, but then they circumvent having the actual match. It means Roxanne Perez can beat Bayley at WrestleMania. That's a big deal. That also then has to be considered a great NXT call-up. Sometimes they quite literally vanish. There's also the US Championship, which LA Knight just won back. It could do Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu, but I kind of feel like that's something that WWE will do on TV. And I think, again, we're tying into stuff that may be true or may not be true. Somebody said on their internet that it was meant to be Shinsuke Nakamura versus LA Knight, but then somebody changed their mind. And that means everything is up for grabs. And I think Jacob Fatu has to leave WrestleMania 41 in a mega position. So if you do want to try and protect LA Knight, given that he's only just won that championship recently, and that Triple H loves doing multi-man matches or multi-person matches, maybe it is LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. I got written down over here, versus Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes. Maybe you can throw Solo Sikoa in there. Maybe you just keep it as a four-way. I say four-way mostly because when it comes to the IC title, I think there's a four-way there too. But he did just do this with Rhea Ripley. She was a very short-term champion, and it is something that WWE could do more of. It's a shame for the person who sort of pulls that short straw, but because so many people have such long title reigns, if everybody then has long title reigns, it gets a bit boring. And I don't think many people are going to be mad if Jacob Fatu leaves WrestleMania as the United States champion. And LA Knight and him did have beef a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, so you could go back to it, which moves on to the women's tag team belts, which I also think have momentum right now. A little peeved about this Raquel Rodriguez versus Lyra Valkyria match, just because I didn't think there was a need. Unless Raquel wins, then come and call me an idiot, which I will be. When you look at people that need to be on this card, Alexa Bliss is a huge shout. If she's not involved, what the hell has happened? She kind of had a little thingy thing with Liv Morgan at the Elimination Chamber. If Alexa Bliss is going to rejoin the Wyatt Six, Nikki Cross should be back on TV. And then for the Tag Team Championships, you can do Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. And I also think that's a crazy match, which moves us on to the Intercontinental title, which is a little bit more confusing because WWE has sort of teased that maybe they'll do Jacob Fatu versus Bron Breakker, but I think we'll hold that off. But Sheamus, I think, should be winning the Intercontinental title here. We haven't really started telling that story, but also Sheamus has been on TV. So if we are going to do the whole four-way for one and four-way for the other, Raw and SmackDown parity, which has happened a lot in WWE, you could do Bron Breakker versus Sheamus versus Pete Dunne versus Ludwig Kaiser, right? That all ties in. Now, of course, you have the Penta situation, but we're going to get there later. But that's what I'm saying. The US title match could be a 5-man with Solo. The IC match could be a 5-man with Penta on there as well. It all depends who WWE has signed or who they haven't signed. But whether they do get included or they don't get included, even if you start taking individuals there and putting them in singles matches, for example, Sheamus versus Bron Breakker one last time, with Sheamus finally winning that IC title, awesome. Even if it's just LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu, with Jacob Fatu becoming the US champion, awesome. He's quite clearly a future main eventer. And then you got the whole thing with Aleister Black. Now, it has been out there that Aleister Black is ready to come back with WWE. Maybe he's already signed, and maybe WWE is already coming up with creative. And you have Dominic Mysterio going, oh, hi, Finn Balor. I think we need a new member. Now, Aleister Black in the Judgment Day, I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, but I'm happy to see it play out. But it also probably means that at WrestleMania, it could be Aleister Black, maybe with Dominic Mysterio or whatever, taking on Finn Balor. And who doesn't want to see Aleister Black taking on Finn Balor? If they got time and they got the edict to, oh, by the way, you can do whatever you want, that also could steal the show. And if you are into in-ring action, there's a bunch of matches that will be trying to pip everybody else for that, and that will make it a damn good weekend card. Which also brings us to this crazy tag team match I've come up with, because given what Chad Gable did on Raw, he's now a luchador for some reason, and I guess he helped the New Day, then why can't there be a world, given that he did screw over Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio, with the New Day and Chad Gable team up, and the people they're taking on would be Rey Mysterio, Penta, and we need someone new because Dragon Lee is dead. That's when you bring in Phoenix, who also has been released from AEW, and you do it that way. However, if you do want to have the Raw Tag Team titles defended, you can come up with a damn weird scenario too. Because it could be the New Day taking on Chad Gable and Julius Creed. I understand that is totally random. The word has always been that WWE wanted to push Julius more than Brutus. I mean, you never know until people are out there. And again, maybe there's somebody else I'm not thinking of. But you could do the New Day versus American Made, for lack of a better term. Then also put Penta and Phoenix in there. And of course, who would be the last team? It would be the War Raiders. They'd have a great match, and who walks away as the tag team champions? It would be Penta and Phoenix. Because much like when Penta debuted, Phoenix is going to get a massive reaction. Kind of feel like we can switch things around here, because again, Pete Dunne and Ludwig Kaiser keep beating up Pentagon, so I presume that Phoenix could get involved there too. But that could be the tag team match. And that's what I mean by an insane WrestleMania card. Even when you sit down, you fantasy book one, all of a sudden your brain goes on a flight of fancy, and you go, well, actually, it could be that too. And that just means you continue to guess, and that's when wrestling's at its best. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory have also been breaking up for the last 18 months, so you could pull the trigger, although I think that would be on a Raw and SmackDown too. And we already basically know the SmackDown tag team title scene after Nick Aldis drew it on a board: Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY versus Pretty Deadly versus the Street Profits, and I assume that will be pretty good too. Also, while I haven't been massively invested in it, it is a long-term story. Been going on for about 4 months, and actually I just realised that Los Garza probably have to be in there too. Then you got the people that keep firing shots at each other on the internet, or at least having some sort of relationship there. Like Trish Stratus versus Nia Jax. I can see Trish being at WrestleMania, or maybe we did hold it off the Elimination Chamber. But that was teased to a certain extent to do the singles match. And then, what was Chelsea Green doing yesterday as I record this video? I don't really like Nikki Bella, so maybe she can have a match with her too. And again, let's not forget that Nikki barely turned up at 30 in the Royal Rumble, and we haven't seen her since. So if you are going to hold her off for the big shows, and I really want Chelsea Green to be on this, especially because I can't see where Lyra Valkyria fits in, which does upset me right in my tum-tum. That's a problem we can talk about in another video. But Chelsea Green versus Nikki Bella, I mean, I would want Chelsea Green to win. I don't think Nikki Bella should be winning the US title, but it does have a certain allure and a certain appeal to it, and that's just going to draw in more people and make WrestleMania feel more like WrestleMania. Now, that is 19 matches that I've just thrown out there, and again, I didn't message Jimmy Uso. I got confused about Solo Sikoa and other people that may be coming in. I mean, Rusev could be there, right? Miro apparently is back out on the free agent market, and apparently he just got back with Lana in real life. That's good news, so thumbs up there, because they're terrific people. Maybe they can come back with a pairing. Maybe I've just said somebody in these brackets, you're like, oh my gosh, they could insert there, or maybe they're going to save them all for the Raw after WrestleMania, because again, some of them have been lackluster, and if an Aleister Black and a Miro and a Phoenix all did turn up on that thing, you'd be like, oh my gosh, WWE is the best thing ever. But this is why it's an insane time. WrestleMania 41 necessarily isn't just Saturday and Sunday, it's a SmackDown before and it's the Raw afterwards, and the other SmackDown sort of 6 days later kind of counts. It's so far away, sometimes it feels like you have entered another season. I totally understand, you may be down on it, you don't like the build, you're not sure what we're going in. I know some people aren't massively enthused with the triple threat with Roman, Seth and CM Punk. But I feel very excited about it. And when I sat down and thought, I wonder if I can write an insane card here, and I came up with that. I mean, mostly it is because of John Cena, the heel, taking on Cody Rhodes, who's also going to have The Rock in his corner. Johnny Boy, that is. I think it's going to be fantastic. But listen, I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. But could this be one of those WrestleManias we talk about for a long-ass time? I would say maybe. You never want to say yes because it can come back and bite you in the ass. Now, of course, please do let me know your insane WrestleMania 41 predictions in the comments below. There are no wrong ones because, again, I will say it for one last time, if John Cena can be the villain, then you can come up with anything you want and it won't be as mad as that. Also, please do interact as much as possible. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen because YouTube loves that the most. And don't forget, all those brand new t-shirts are out now on prowrestlingtees.com/Simon Miller for American friends and simon.bigcartel.com for European friends and UK friends, obviously. Please, Americans, stop buying from the Big Cartel store. I'm still going to send it to you, but you will save money at Pro Wrestling Tees. That's the whole point of it. Otherwise, if you'd like to save money, go to grillofmine.com/Simon. You go to Simon, get 25% off fitness supplements this week, and you want to do that because they're really good. And also, come follow me on social media at Simon316. Come get yourself a personalized video cameo message at Simon Miller, and come send me dumb TikTok messages at Simon J. Miller. But otherwise, I think we should be positive about WrestleMania. I think it's earned it, especially Triple H's bookings over the last few months. I'm pumped about it. How about you? Let me know. I'll see you tomorrow.